Hello there and welcome back to the Net Report. Chris here, and Nets fans, they finally did it. The Nets traded Mikal Bridges and are looking to finally start their rebuild. For those of you who don't know, earlier this offseason, the Nets traded their best player in Mikal Bridges for an absolute haul of draft picks. 4 unprotected firsts from the Knicks, a protected first from the Bucks, and a future pick swap. And then just hours after that trade, they made another massive trade that will return their 2025 and 2026 first round draft picks back in their possession. And this is just absolutely massive for a Brooklyn team who has been stuck in NBA purgatory without their draft picks for the last couple of years. Ever since the 2023 season where the Nets chose to blow it up and trade Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they have been sort of stuck in the mud. They haven't been the worst team in the league, and they've had talent such as Nicholas Claxton, Cam Thomas, and Mikal Bridges, but this team felt like it had hit its ceiling as an at most 40-win team, maybe fringe playoff team if everything went right for them, and that's exactly what we saw from them this season, finishing with a record of 32-50, not nearly bad enough to be one of the worst teams, but not good enough to be in real contention for the play-in tournament, let alone the playoffs. And for a team like the Nets, this was the absolute worst place to be because they did not have control of any of their draft picks. For those of you who don't remember, the Nets lost their draft picks in the trade for James Harden, and it is the reason why the Nets didn't have a draft pick this year, and instead it was the Rockets picking 3rd overall in this year's draft. So due to not having their own picks, the Nets have had to remain this sub 500 team rather than sell off a bunch of their assets and hit that reset button. Otherwise, it would just result in the Rockets receiving these amazing high draft picks every year. However, this front office under Sean Marks just pulled off a brilliant set of trades that not only got them a ton of assets for their star player in Mikal Bridges, it also gave them control over their 2025 and 2026 draft picks, which is absolutely massive headed into a 2025 draft that looks to be potentially loaded with star talent. First, with the Mikal Bridges trade, they got more draft picks than realistically anyone would have probably expected they would get out of him. Like we stated earlier, 4 picks from the Knicks, a Bucks pick, and a pick swap. So overall 5 draft picks and a pick swap, plus Bojan Bogdanovic, who you can probably flip for more draft assets down the line. That all just sounds insane on paper. Mikal Bridges, of course, fits the Knicks very well, so it makes sense why you would make this trade, but that's still an amazing amount of assets to jumpstart a rebuild from the Nets side of things, especially for a guy in Bridges who, while he has been great, hasn't made an all-star team and wasn't going to be able to carry this team by himself to anything special. So getting this amount of assets for him was pretty impressive, all things considered. That combined with trading for their own picks back like we mentioned earlier, finally gives the Nets a chance to tank and start an actual rebuild where they control their own destiny. And the Nets are an interesting team with at least some young talent going forward. You have Cam Thomas, who really came into his own last season. He averaged 22.5 points per game while shooting 44% from the field and 36% from 3. Really just your typical offensive microwave scorer who can get hot at any moment. Just a pure bucket getter, really. This efficiency is not bad, but by no means great. But he is only 22 years of age, and being able to average 22.5 points per game while being so young is a great sign, and I expect him to be a big part of the Nets' future plans. They also have Nicholas Claxton, who just signed a big 4-year extension worth $100 million to stay with the Nets, and Claxton is a double-double machine who can do many things you want from a big man. He can rebound, block shots, he's a great lob threat, screen setter, and he's only 25 years old, so he would fit the timeline for a rebuild. The Nets obviously see him as a big part of their future, so it's no surprise they gave him a 4-year, $100 million contract. They also have a couple young guys who seem intriguing, who I could see getting some more playing time, like Darren Sharp. Outside of that, however, there is not a whole lot to be excited about youth-wise due to them not really having their draft picks the last couple of years. They do, however, have a few good veteran players who I could see them trading away for young talent or future draft capital, similar to how the OKC Thunder have. They have Dorian Finney-Smith, who many thought they would have traded away around trade deadline. And with Finney-Smith, you might be able to get 2 first-round picks from him if you are able to play your cards right, just because he's a versatile wing defender who can shoot the 3, and that's very valuable in today's league. You also have Cam Johnson, another player who I could see them trading due to just not fully fitting the timeline since he's already 28 years old. He's a decent scorer, but has had some injury history, so who knows what he could realistically fetch in a trade. And now after the Mikal Bridges trade, they have Bojan Bogdanovic, who is a very valuable vet who can score, be a good bench piece for a team, so maybe a team wants to give up a first-round pick similar to how the Knicks did during the trade deadline. If not though, he could remain a valuable veteran player for your young locker room. Either way, I could see them trading 1 to 2 of these guys just to add on to the mountain of picks they already already have and to add an influx of young talent to the roster to help jumpstart this rebuild. And on top of that, they also have Ben Simmons, who at this point is more of a negative asset due to that horrible contract and just never being available health-wise. But if the stars align and Ben Simmons is able to have a somewhat healthy run, he can at least be a great playmaker who can set up easy baskets for guys like Cam Thomas, throw lobs up to Nicholas Claxton, and overall just make their lives easier while still being solid on the defensive side of the floor. Chances are that this isn't going to be the case, but the silver lining is if Ben Simmons is still not up to par production-wise and health-wise, that bad contract on a rebuilding team is not the end of the world. But the single most important part of all this was securing their own draft picks and maximizing their chance at drafting a star player in the 2025 draft. Like I said, they have young talent in guys like Cam Thomas and Nicholas Claxton, but definitely not enough to win you very many games, so they will be among the worst teams in the league next year, which you should want as a Nets fan. There is tons of buzz around this draft class coming up with prospects like Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, so you want to maximize your chance at getting one of these guys who can become a future superstar. If all goes right and you trade away some of your older pieces like a Dorian Finney-Smith for younger pieces, and you get some luck in the draft lottery, you could be looking at a really good start to your rebuild. They also are projected to have a ton of cap space in 2025, even after the Nicholas Claxton signing. And while nobody of course expects them to sign big free agents like they did a few years ago when signing Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, having that cap space to sign veterans to help develop your young core is important and something to look out for. Overall, this was just an absolute win for the Nets, and we are finally going to be able to see them start this rebuild rather than remain this mediocre fringe play-in team. Being able to trade for their own draft picks back may have saved them from a few years stuck in mediocrity with nothing to show for it. But Nets fans, let me know what you think of these moves in the comment section below. Are you excited that this team is finally in rebuild mode? Hopefully for your sake, you can win the draft lottery and the likes of a Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey can turn your franchise around. It has been rough the last few years, but things are at least finally looking up going forward. As always, if you enjoyed this type of content, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel out a ton and will keep you up to date with our newest NBA content. Thanks once again for tuning in and have a great one.